learn to forgive, and move forward even after difficult moments in a relationship to create a happy future. Subscribe to the channel and put a like, and I'll start the story. Richard and Monica had been married for 8 years. They already had a 6-year-old son when she became pregnant again. The second pregnancy came as a surprise to the couple. It was even more unexpected when the doctor at the ultrasound scan suddenly gave them a sly wink, turned the screen and showed 2 tiny dots, explaining that Richard and Monica were now parents of many children. Monica, who had just gotten off work, howled. She absolutely hated to go back to Groundhog Day within 4 walls, but Richard had fervently promised her that he would help, and everything would be fine. "If we need a nanny, we'll hire one," he said, wiping away the tears that rolled down his beloved wife's cheeks. "We'll manage, honey." So their daughters came into their lives. Time passed. The children grew up. Soon Monica had to go to work. Her friends urged her to go to the sea until she finally plunged into a life that implied only a program: home, work, home. On reflection, the woman decided that it was not a bad idea and began to process Richard. "I want to go on vacation," Monica stretched out dreamily. Richard smiled. The man had lost count of how many times he had heard those words this month, and he was just planning to give her a week or 2 of seaside vacation. He knew how his beloved was exhausted when she was on maternity leave with the twins, which was why Richard had been at work lately, grabbing every opportunity for extra income. A couple of weeks later, he presented his wife with an envelope of money at dinner, on which he had written in jagged handwriting, "To my beloved on the sea." Monica shrieked with joy and threw herself around her husband's neck. She knew perfectly well that sooner or later her languid sighs and talk of vacation would bear fruit, and as always, she was right. She'd gotten to know her spouse inside and out over the past 8 years. "Are you coming?" Richard smiled. Monica shrugged, although her vacation had long been planned, and that she and her friends already knew exactly where they would go and what they would do there. "I'll have to ask my girls. Maybe someone can come with me." Embarrassed, she muttered back. Richard liked his wife's friends. They had been in contact since high school, and he had no reason not to trust any of them, including Monica herself. A month later, with a calm heart, he let his beloved go on a long-awaited vacation, and he was left alone with 3 children. Happy. Monica plunged into a vacation with her head. For a moment it seemed to her that she was the basis of a young, free girl, not tortured by life and 2 consecutive maternity leave. The first few days flew by before she could blink. On the 4th day of vacation, when drinking alcohol Monica was no longer able to, she broke away from her friends and went to the spa. Having paid for a complex of procedures, the woman plunged into a world of bliss. The last on the list was a massage. Entering the room, where there was semi-darkness and pleasant aromas in the air, she was confused. In front of her stood a handsome man, a head and a half taller than her. He was smiling broadly, his pumped-up muscles showing beneath his thin t-shirt. The sight of the masseur roused Monica, but he began his work as if nothing had happened. All the rest of the day she thought about the powerful hands of the dark-haired handsome man, imagining herself in his arms. That evening at the club, she didn't immediately recognize him. He came up behind her as she danced and put his hands on her waist. Monica dropped them and turned around to slap the insolent man. But when she recognized him as the masseur, she was embarrassed. He introduced himself to her, saying his name was Adam. The woman spent the morning in his bed. When she awoke, her head was buzzing with the realization of what she had done. She looked at the peacefully sleeping strange man next to her. She was ashamed of herself, her friends, and especially Richard. She ran away from Adam without saying goodbye, grabbing her things and running barefoot outside. It was early morning. The coolness and sea air sobered her up a bit and gave her a chance to reflect. By the time Monica reached her room, she'd already convinced herself that nothing terrible had happened. Just a resort romance that her beloved husband would never know about. After all, she could afford to spend those 2 weeks the way she wanted to, without remorse. Monica introduced her boyfriend to her friends, and they, being single ladies, didn't judge her, or she just wanted to think so. She was so clouded with emotion that she didn't notice that one of them, Catherine, hardly spoke to her at all. Catherine sympathized with her friend's husband, and for her was completely unacceptable behavior Monica, and she feverishly thought about how to bring the fact of infidelity to Richard. Having thought of nothing better, the woman began to take pictures of lovers, deciding, after arriving home, anonymously send the deceived man pictures with his unfaithful wife. Fascinated, Monica did not notice how the vacation came to an end. Parting was sad. She courageously refused to let Adam keep her email or phone number, wanting to keep this beautiful romance just a memory to remember. The man had given her a bracelet, a creepy craft from a gift store. Monica promised to keep the gift. At home, life went on as usual. The children, having missed their mother for 2 weeks, hung on her and could not get off. Richard also could not look at the beautiful and tanned wife. The vacation had a positive effect on his beloved, and she seemed to lose a few years during these 14 days. Monica relaxed. Richard did not suspect anything. On the contrary, his attitude to her became even more tender. So there was nothing to fear. The romance with Adam really remained only in her thoughts after the vacation. The couple had been married for some time. One day, coming to work, a coworker handed Richard a thick envelope. "Who handed it over?" the man asked in surprise, twirling the sealed white rectangle in his hands. The coworker shrugged. "A courier. Some kid gave your name and surname, told me to hand it over personally." Richard was surprised. He'd never received anything like this before, but he didn't have time to open the envelope and examine the contents. So he threw it in the car and only remembered it when it was time to go home. What he saw gave him goosebumps. Inside the envelope were about 30 photographs. All of them were invariably of 2 people, his wife Monica and an unknown man who was hugging or kissing her. With anger, Richard gritted his teeth and gritted them. So that's how it is. A husband worked hard to earn his wife money for a long-awaited vacation, and she easily cheats on him for his own money. The man hit the steering wheel with all his might, and the car shrieked pitifully. He raced home, not caring about the road. The oldest son had spent the night at his grandmother's house, and the little girls were already on their 10th nap when Daddy came home, angry as hell. He found Monica sitting in a chair laughing stupidly at some video on her phone. Richard strode into the hall without taking his shoes off and threw the pictures at his spouse. Monica looked at them and her eyes widened in horror. She shifted her gaze from the pictures to her husband. A vein on Richard's forehead swelled and pulsed with anger. The woman was afraid to argue with him and repented of what she had done. She had never heard so many insults. Richard could not make up his mind to leave. He had been staying at his friend's house for a month, and almost every night he got drunk to the point of insanity. He felt sorry for himself, sorry for the children. After a month, gaunt and unshaven, he returned home, promising himself that he would try to forgive his wife. For the next 5 years, he convinced himself that he could really forgive her, that he could turn a blind eye to her disgusting act. But one day, he couldn't stand it and announced to her that he was leaving for good. The woman did not try to keep him, did not begin to arrange a scandal, and just silently let him go. Deep down, Monica knew that sooner or later it would happen. Left alone with children, she had to tighten her belt and work until she fell. With men with her did not work out. All of them were simply afraid to connect with a woman who had 3 children at once. For a long time, Monica stayed alone, waking up and falling asleep in a cold bed. What would you do if you were Richard? Write in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and like if you like the story.